The night was cold, one of those city nights where even the streetlights seemed tired. The rain came down in thin, silver sheets, coating the asphalt in reflections of red and gold from passing cars. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. Lila Grant ran as if the storm itself were chasing her. Her shoes slapped against the wet pavement, her breath uneven, her hands trembling. A tear rolled down her cheek, though it was impossible to tell if it was from the rain or the fear that gripped her chest. Behind her, a car door slammed. A voice, male, harsh, familiar, echoed through the empty street. Greater than Trevor, shouting, "Lila, you can't run from me." Her heart thudded. Every syllable from that voice was a reminder of months spent in fear, the shouting, the gaslighting, the bruises hidden beneath long sleeves. She had finally left him that night, slipping away with nothing but a coat and a small purse. Now he was following her. Again, she darted down an alleyway, the sound of her footsteps splashing in puddles. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed for rest. When she reached the end of the narrow street, she froze, a dead end. Her eyes darted around wildly. She could hear the engine approaching. Desperation clawed at her throat. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw it, a sleek black car parked under a flickering streetlight. The tinted windows hid whoever was inside. Without thinking, she ran toward it. Her hand yanked the handle, unlocked. She threw herself inside and slammed the door shut, chest heaving. Greater than Lila, frantic whisper, "Please. Please, just drive. I'll explain later, I swear." The man behind the wheel didn't move for a moment. He turned his head slowly, his expression calm, almost unnervingly so. He looked like someone in complete control of the world around him. His suit was perfectly tailored, his dark hair slightly tousled, and his piercing gray eyes studied her with quiet intensity. This was Domenico Russo, though she didn't know his name yet, the man whispered about in every corner of the city. The kind of man who could make people disappear with a single phone call. Greater than Domenico, quietly, "You're bleeding." Lila looked down, a scrape on her arm from when she'd fallen earlier, streaked with rainwater and dirt. She barely noticed it. Greater than Lila, pleading, "Please. He's coming. I just need to hide for a few minutes." For a second, Domenico didn't move. The rain tapped rhythmically against the windshield, and her panicked breathing filled the silence. Then, without a word, he shifted the car into gear. The tires screeched as the car sped away into the night. Dash dash dash. Int. Domenico's car. Moving. Night. The world outside blurred into streaks of light. Lila pressed her palms against her knees, trying to steady her breathing. Domenico's hands on the steering wheel were steady, his jaw tense but composed. Greater than Domenico. "Who's after you?" Greater than Lila. "My ex. He's dangerous. Please, don't take me back there. He'll hurt me." Greater than Domenico. "You shouldn't have been walking alone this late." His tone wasn't kind, but it wasn't cruel either, just factual, detached. Yet something in his voice hinted at concern. Greater than Lila, defensive, "I didn't have a choice. I had to run." He glanced at her briefly, and for the first time, his expression softened slightly, a flicker of something almost human beneath the armor. Greater than Domenico. "You picked the wrong car to hide in." Greater than Lila, confused, "What do you mean?" He gave a faint, wry smile, cold, but not unkind. Greater than Domenico. "Let's just say, I'm not the kind of man people ask for help." Lila frowned, her pulse quickening. She noticed the black leather gloves on the console, the faint scent of gun oil in the air, the sleek precision of everything around her. Her instinct screamed danger, yet her heart whispered something else. Greater than Lila, quietly, "Well, you helped me anyway." Domenico's grip on the steering wheel tightened. No one talked to him like that, not with such disarming honesty. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned sharply down a deserted side street, headlights cutting through the mist. Dash dash dash. Ext. Highway edge. Night. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. Domenico parked under a cluster of trees. The hum of the engine faded. For a moment, silence. The only sound was her ragged breathing and the gentle patter of water on the roof. Then Domenico stepped out. His tall frame was cast in moonlight, his expression unreadable. He reached into his coat and pulled out a phone. Greater than Domenico, into phone. "Lo, it's Russo. Find a man named Trevor. Deal with it." He ended the call without emotion. Lila watched him through the window, her stomach twisting. She didn't understand what she'd just witnessed, or who he really was. When he slid back into the car, she asked softly. Greater than Lila. "Who are you?" Greater than Domenico calmly, the man who just made your problem disappear. Her eyes widened. She didn't know whether to feel safe, or terrified. The city stretched ahead, glittering like broken glass, and in that black car, two lives had just collided in a way neither of them could ever undo. The rain had stopped by the time Domenico's black car pulled into an underground garage beneath a towering skyscraper. Lila stared out the window in disbelief. This wasn't a normal apartment building. The marble, the security cameras, the silent guards at the door, everything screamed money and power. Domenico stepped out first, his long coat flowing behind him like a shadow. He didn't look back at her. Greater than Domenico, you can stay here tonight. You'll be safe. His tone was clipped, commanding, the kind of voice used to being obeyed. Lila hesitated, still gripping the car door handle. Greater than Lila, why are you helping me? You don't even know me. He paused at the elevator and finally turned toward her. His gray eyes locked onto hers, calm but with a darkness behind them. Greater than Domenico, let's just say I don't like men who chase women in the rain. Something about the way he said it, quiet, controlled, made her both uneasy and curious. Int. Domenico's living room, later. The penthouse was breathtaking, floor-to-ceiling windows, a skyline view that looked like it belonged in a movie, and silence that felt almost intimidating. Lila stood awkwardly near the couch, dripping rainwater onto the Persian rug. She felt out of place, a struggling woman in a man's world built on power and secrets. Greater than Lila, softly, you really don't have to do this. I can find a shelter or something. Greater than Domenico, interrupting, you're safer here. He won't find you. His words were final. She nodded quietly, unsure whether to thank him or question him. Domenico disappeared down the hall for a moment and returned with a towel and a blanket. He handed them to her, expression neutral but his movements careful, almost protective. Greater than Domenico, you can use the guest room. Lock the door if it makes you feel better. Greater than Lila, meeting his eyes, do you always help strangers like this? He gave a small, humorless smile. Greater than Domenico, no. You just happened to step into my car before I could say no. For the first time, Lila smiled faintly, a fragile, grateful smile that made something flicker behind his stoic expression. Int. Guest room, night. Lila sat on the edge of the bed, the city lights flickering through the window. She looked around the room, everything was perfect, clean, untouched. She ran her hand across the soft blanket and whispered to herself, greater than Lila, who are you, really? Her eyes drifted toward the door, half expecting it to open. But Domenico didn't come. She lay back, exhaustion taking over. For the first time in months, she felt safe. Int. Domenico's office, same time. Domenico stood by his desk, sleeves rolled up, his phone pressed to his ear. Greater than Domenico, did you find him? A voice answered faintly on the other side, one of his men. Greater than voice through phone, yeah. We tracked Trevor to the South Docks. What do you want us to do? Domenico's expression hardened. He looked out at the glowing skyline, his reflection a sharp silhouette against the glass. Greater than Domenico, scare him. Make sure he knows he'll never touch her again. He hung up, slipped the phone into his pocket, and leaned on the desk, exhaling slowly. He didn't know why he cared. He'd rescued people before, but never personally. Never like this. Something about the fear in Lila's eyes had broken through the steel walls he'd built around himself for years. Int. Penthouse kitchen, morning. Lila woke to the smell of coffee. When she stepped out, Domenico was already dressed, black suit, tie perfectly in place, posture straight and deliberate. He handed her a cup without looking up from his tablet. Greater than Domenico, you can stay as long as you need to. Greater than Lila, you don't even know what he did. Why are you being kind to me? He looked up then, eyes narrowing slightly. Greater than Domenico, kindness has nothing to do with it. I just don't like unfinished business. She tilted her head, curiosity pushing through her fear. Greater than Lila, you sound like someone who doesn't trust people. Greater than Domenico, flatly, I don't. Their eyes met, his gaze cold and guarded, hers soft but fearless. Something unspoken passed between them. Greater than Lila, then why trust me enough to let me stay? For the first time, Domenico didn't have an immediate answer. He simply turned away, grabbing his coat. Greater than Domenico, breakfast is on the counter. Don't go near the balcony, it's under surveillance. He paused at the door, his voice dropping low. Greater than Domenico. And, Lila, whatever you think you know about me, you're probably wrong. He left before she could respond. Int. Living room, continuous. Lila stood there, the cup trembling slightly in her hands. She glanced around the penthouse again, the guards at the entrance, the expensive art, the quiet tension in the air. Then, on the table, she noticed something that made her freeze, a newspaper. The front page headline read, Domenico Russo, the Ghost King of the Underworld. Her heart skipped. She looked toward the door he had just walked out of, realization dawning in her eyes. Greater than Lila, whispering, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? The city outside was silent, but inside Domenico's mansion, the air trembled with tension. Lila sat in the corner of the vast living room, clutching the pendant he had given her, a small, delicate cross she'd found strange when he first offered it. Now she knew it wasn't just jewelry. It was a tracker, a protection device, his way of saying, I'll find you if you're in danger. But tonight, it wasn't just danger that was finding her, it was truth. Domenico stood by the tall windows, his figure bathed in the soft blue glow of the moonlight. His face was unreadable, his usual sharp composure fractured by something raw, almost painful. On the marble table behind him lay a thick folder filled with photos, documents, and evidence, her ex's criminal ties, the debts he owed to men far darker than anyone Lila had ever imagined. You were never just running from a bad man, Domenico said finally, his deep voice quiet but carrying through the silence. You were running from someone who was trying to sell you to cover his debts. Lila's breath hitched. She covered her mouth, her body trembling. No, that's not possible. He wouldn't. He would, Domenico cut in gently, stepping closer. I've seen his kind 1,000 times. And I've seen women like you destroyed by trusting them. She shook her head, tears streaming freely now. Then why help me? You could have just dropped me off and driven away. He turned away, his hand running through his dark hair, struggling to keep his emotions contained. I tried, he muttered. But something about you wouldn't let me. Lila stood up, heart pounding. You're not just some man who offered a ride. Who are you really, Domenico? The question hung in the air, heavy with truth. He finally faced her, his expression shadowed but sincere. I run things you don't want to know about. I have power, but it comes from blood, not business. People call me a monster. But I've spent years making sure that monster never touches the innocent. He stepped closer, his tone softening. And then you showed up, barefoot and terrified, asking to hide in my car. You reminded me of the one thing I'd forgotten I still had, a heart. For a long moment, the world seemed to stop. Lila could only stare at him, torn between fear and something much deeper, trust. The kind of trust that shouldn't exist between a hunted woman and a man like him. Yet here it was, undeniable. A sudden explosion of sound shattered the quiet. Glass cracked, bullets rang out, and Domenico moved faster than she could blink. He pulled her behind the heavy oak desk, his gun drawn in one hand, his other hand gripping her tightly. Stay down, he ordered. Who are they? She cried, panic surging. Your ex's buyers, he said through gritted teeth. They came to collect what he promised them. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it started. Domenico rose, silent and dangerous, like a shadow. Within minutes, his men flooded the mansion, dragging out masked intruders. Lila could only watch as he commanded with ruthless precision, the real Domenico Verasi revealed. The Mafia boss who controlled half the city. When the chaos settled, he came back to her. His coat was torn, a line of blood on his cheek, but his eyes were softer than she had ever seen. It's over, he said quietly. You're safe now. Lila shook her head. No, you're bleeding. You're not safe either. He laughed faintly, a sound filled with exhaustion. Safety doesn't exist in my world, Lila. But you, he paused, brushing a tear from her face. You deserve a world better than mine. Her heart broke at his words. Don't send me away, please. He looked down, hesitating. If I keep you, you'll never live free. Everyone I love becomes a target. She reached for his hand. Then we fight together. I've been running my whole life. I don't want to run anymore. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, Domenico took her hand, pressing it to his heart. Then stay, he whispered. But know this, you're no longer just hiding from your past. You're standing beside a man who will burn the world if anyone touches you again. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they weren't from fear. They were from the overwhelming realization that even in a world built on power and darkness, she had found something pure, love born out of chaos. Outside, the sirens wailed in the distance, but inside that mansion, there was peace. Two broken souls had found each other in the unlikeliest way, a runaway and a mafia boss, both hiding from who they were, both daring to hope again. And for the first time in years, Lila didn't feel like she was running. She felt home.